everybody, how are you? Welcome to our December deTour here at the Gray Design Building on University of Kentucky's campus. My name is Jackson Osborne. I'm the Cross for DeTour presentation. It's a thrill to be here where future preservation can start. Also, if you haven't picked up a handout yet, we've got one of those. Before getting started, I would just like to do a special thank you to Erica organizing this special deTour for us. This is going to be our last indoor in-person deTour for the season. We're going to switch to virtual for January, February, and March. So if you follow us on any of our socials or our YouTube account, or just want to log into our Bluegrass Trust website, we will be uploading our virtual deTour there. It will be the first Wednesday of every month at 6 o'clock. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to the chair, Doug Acker.
We'll keep this very short because I don't really have a ton to say. First off, thank you all for showing up. Very much appreciate everybody being down here on what is probably going to wind up being a fairly cold evening. So glad you all brave the weather. In case anybody needs them, restroom around the corner to the left. So just so you know, those are there. Just to give you a little bit of background and context, I don't know how much of our story you all know, but so we all just moved into the Gray Design Building in March. So that was the initial mid-semester. Everybody kind of drops everything and runs over to the new building and settles in and tries to complete a semester. Prior to that, the College of Design had actually been 5 different buildings across the UK campus, which is, as you can imagine, kind of difficult to navigate. The PhD program was mostly in Bowman Hall. Administration was mostly in Pence Hall. Everybody was kind of scattered around with whatever studio spaces they could sort of scrap together. But now we're all in one place, and so that was kind of the whole purpose of the project, was to get all the different units of the College of Design in one place, along with landscape architecture, which is also located here now, even though they're technically in the college bag. And so our former dean, Mitzi Berman, was the one who really spearheaded that project, raised the funds, and did the work to get the whole thing rolling. I actually had, right before the Reynolds Building project, right before this project started, I actually had friends who were in the salvage industry. I mean, they were licking their chops. They just wanted to know when the building was coming down, when they could get their hands on everything that you see here. And I had to tell them, no, actually, UK is not going to tear it down. They're going to use it for the College of Design. So we got very lucky. So we had, I made it sound like the folks in the salvage industry are, savage or something. Nice guys. Very nice guys. That's right. So nice. But we're glad that our historic building is still standing and that we are able to reuse it. And honestly, for the College of Design and for the Department of Historic Preservation, being in this building is honestly, it's just a blessing to be able to walk around and say, people can ask, well, what's historic preservation? And I can just say, well, just kind of look up and look around. Here you have a building that was functionally obsolete, hadn't been used as a tobacco warehouse for generations, had been a pretty rough experience as a teaching space when it was the School of Art and Visual Studies was over here. But when you think about it, it's a great example of what we want to do in historic preservation. We want to take those historic buildings that are, they've outlived their original purpose, think through what they can do for modern society and how they can find a new role in today. With that, I'm probably going to stop talking and I'm probably going to hand it over to Joe. But just one last thing before I hand it over to Joe, just so you know a little bit more about the history of the building itself. I think Joe's going to mostly talk about the new things that happened to it. I've got copies of the old Sanborn maps of the building over there on the table, so if you want to look at a 1934 Sanborn map of the Reynolds building, if you don't know what Sanborn maps are, you really got to find out because they're really amazing. You can lose hours just looking through these old maps. They're basically snapshots of the city. They were taken at pretty regular intervals, and they've got maps like that for the entire United States, so you can find all kinds of information about historic buildings by using the Sanborn maps. So you can look at those Sanborn maps and get an idea of where things are. If you want the Cliff Notes version, basically, this building was used as a tobacco re-drying warehouse. So basically, what would happen is tobacco during, I guess there was a rise in the early 20th century in cigarette smoking as opposed to just chewing tobacco. There was a increasing demand for burley tobacco, and in order to make it more stable, they had to re-dry it after it came in to the warehouse. And so the bottom floor was basically the tobacco sticking area. So they would take the tobacco leaves, have to get it off the top, they stick them on sticks. And they carry them up to the second floor, which was basically the ovens, the re-drying ovens. So they had these long linear ovens that would help them, again, continue to dry out those tobacco leaves and make sure they were more or less shelf stable. Over here on this side of the building, up on the top was the cooperage. So that's where the hogsheads of tobacco were made. So those are the big giant barrels where you store tobacco. Those were made upstairs. And then down at the bottom, where my office is, where the office is, was storage, basically. It was just storage of the barrels. So lots going on. Lots of other cool historic things that I'm sure Joe can tell you all about. But with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Joe. I'll take off the steps. You're the only one.
That's really important. Thank you all so much. We love doing these tours. We love showing off the building. But I'm especially happy about tonight because, exactly as Doug was saying, you may or may not have heard, but the university has not always had the best history of preserving historic buildings. So I am so happy and proud of what we were able to accomplish here, and in partnership with the university. Not just because it's a great building, which I think it is, but also because of what it represents and teaches our community about what's important about preserving what's already here, especially a great building like this building. So exactly as Doug was saying, this was originally built in 1970. And this whole process has been, let's keep as much of the building as possible while modernizing it. So as we go forward, I'll certainly point those things out, and happy to be conversational. So if you have any questions or anything, stop me at any point. Another just housekeeping note, small housekeeping note is, as you can tell, the best part of the building is that there's students here. It's thriving, hustling, and bustling. So just be respectful of that. The classes are still going on, actually, the classes are in big open rooms. So there may be times when I talk a little more quietly or that sort of thing. So with that being said, you are in what is now the entrance of the building. The front of the building was actually on Broadway. We have these beautiful pictures of Broadway going over the train tracks when that used to be Boots Bar. Anybody ever heard of Boots Bar?
Yep.
You might remember Boots Bar. Maybe a couple of you may have visited Boots Bar. But what was great is that this building used to be on Broadway. It was part of the urban fabric of Lexington. And in 1983, they sunk down underneath the railroad tracks, presumably because people were tired of staying on such a busy road waiting for the train to pass. And it really did something weird to this building. It detached it really from the city of Lexington. So I don't know how it felt driving back here, but a lot of folks have always kind of considered this out in the middle of nowhere, even though it's like 10 minutes from campus. So one of our big goals is to try to reconnect it sort of psychologically to the rest of Lexington. So in order to do that, we've got this new entrance. This building is held up by several hundred beautiful old pine columns. We think they're probably from the Robinson Forest in eastern Kentucky. But because it's a sea of columns, there were a few spaces that we really wanted to open up. And you're standing in one of them now. We're going to walk around this here in a minute and you'll get a better sense of this. But what we wanted to do for this main central area is to be exactly what you see, which is this big mixing pot of the 600 to 700 people that are in this building at any given moment. And of course, the central point of that mixing pot are these beautiful new stairs. These stairs were custom fabricated in 3 pieces in northern Kentucky, in a place called Fields Welding. And they are 30,000 pounds. It was not a small thing to get these guys in here. And as a matter of fact, we built like a whole building underneath where I'm standing, just so the floor didn't collapse from the new weight. So an incredible feat. They came out, they turned out great, and we're really happy with them. So what we're going to do is, because there's so many of us, just appreciate us trying to stay as tightly as possible. And I'm a loud talker anyway, so that's not much of a problem. But we're going to go around the end of this, around the edge of this, so you can see up in the clearing. And then we're going to go into that room in there that says David Biaggi Forum. So if you guys will follow me.
Before you go,
What's this spring thing here? Is that an installation or what?
It's an installation. Students did an installation, and so actually, as the day goes on, the light in the sun from the sun really makes it glow. It adds a lot of color. But it's purely aesthetic. Don't challenge me. So you can see the columns obviously hold the building up. However, in this particular place, we had to create a band of steel that's going all the way around that opening because we have to be able to help hold up the stairs, but then also hold up the rest of that floor as well. So it was a pretty big engineering challenge. Brian Kubican was the structural engineer on this project from here in Lexington. And they did an amazing job. So you can see piece 1 I'm standing under, piece 2 is that other section of the Y, and the piece 3 was what I was standing on. So 3 pieces that had to be trucked down in here. The other interesting thing, and the other reason for the band, isn't just the removal of the columns, but also this brick wall here. You'll notice it has a sibling on the other side of the room. That was one continuous brick wall, load-bearing wall. And again, when you make the decision, sort of the architectural decision to say, this is the melting pot, you have to make some pretty big decisions. And cutting that out was a really big decision. But I love these brick walls. I love all of this because everywhere, especially in the brick, the floors too, tell a story about the building itself. So in these particular cases, there are all kinds of infill, there are different patterns, so you can see the history of the building written on these brick walls. You can see maybe where windows and doors were at some point and got bricked in at different times. Obviously, the elevator was not an original thing. We think that there was probably a manual dumbwaiter sort of style elevator there at one point. But you can see that the different brick patterns are there as well. So what we're going to do now, actually I'd like to take you all in 109 first.
Oh, we got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You connected anything to the roof, to the ceiling, because there's still water.
It's a great question. So the question is, while we're looking up, there's a few parts to that. The first is that the School of Art was already in here, even though the building, they had moved out maybe 5 years before this project. So the roof wasn't in bad shape. That at least was maintained by the university over the years. However, we did have to reckon with, there are these beautiful bowstring trusses that when we go upstairs, you'll see it better, but you can see that bowstring truss. That's part of the reason that column is where your hand is because we had to replace columns that were holding that up. So that's what that's for. So that was structurally what we had to do. But in terms of just the overall performance of the roof, we nipped and tucked it. We made sure that there was some waterproofing, but more or less it was pretty good. Actually, interestingly enough, the worst part of water damage, water infiltration, was from that right there, that clerestory window. And we'll get a better look at that when we go upstairs. But there's one part of the building that's bowstring and another that's a monopitch roof. And so that gap is this beautiful window that during the day you can watch the sun go past, but it was leaky as all get out. Everything was rotten underneath that. So we had to replace a lot of what was there. Good question. Yes?
And did you go downstairs? I know that used to be surplus equipment for the whole university.
That's right.
That's down there now.
Yeah, so it was surplus. They're out now in a place called the Vaughn Warehouse, which is out Versailles Road, another old tobacco warehouse. It's like only the university is an old tobacco warehouses.
Honestly, if you have a chance, look at that other Sandmore map. You can see how much of just this area was just totally covered in tobacco warehouse.
Yeah.
Everything around here was a tobacco warehouse. I mean, you couldn't throw a rock without hitting a tobacco warehouse.
Yeah, this was called the Burley Tobacco Capital of the World. So the question is what's down there now? Actually, the answer is really not much. The original plan for this building was to have studios in the basement as well. But because budgets went crazy, COVID happened, which I feel like I still say that even though it's been 4 years now. It really made the prices go up so much that we have just shelved this. It's just a shelf space down there.
And one more question.
Yeah.
Over there somewhere used to be a blast furnace
Yeah.
where students
Yep.
could finish their artwork. Was that part of this renovation, or is that separate, or what?
It's a good question. So we call that the Metal Arts Building. So that's part of the School of Art and Visual Studies. And every year, you're exactly right, they have a furnace. They've got welding equipment over there. They do just a lot of metal sculpture. And every year they pour out the sand and then do an iron pour where they heat up the iron and they pour it down and then cast it in the sand. That's still right outside of here. So the thing that changed was they were in the basement down here, but they're now all moved out into there in the adjacent warehouse that's right next to us right now. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's head in 109. I want to show you a couple of things here.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see.
So I wanted to bring you in here for a couple of reasons. One is to get a good sense of, we spent our whole time out there in the big open space. The acoustics are different. You can hear sort of the background noise once these shut. You'll hear how dramatically different. So there's acoustic glass that we use, which works exceptionally well. Also wanted to get away from that window, that door, because I was getting really cold. But the other thing is, this is one of the best places where you can see what I was talking about the brick wall. So these are new to this project infill. And you'll notice this red grout is actually outside. It was a very surprising choice. We would, if you had asked me, and somebody, you know, they did ask, what color grout we were going to use, I would have told you probably closer to what you expect to find. However, what we found was the brick patterns and the types of bricks are just all over the place in terms of color, shades of red and everything. And so that color red unifies it in a way that's really surprising. So you're going to see that now when you go outside. I mean, not now, it's dark, but when you drive by this building in the future, you'll notice what I'm saying, but it's not until somebody points it out that you notice it. It did a really good job. And that's another thing that's an important aspect of this project. There's a lot about historic preservation we talk about a lot, that craftsmanship is hard and really hard to come by these days, especially. The amount of people that do, you know, tin press ceilings or, you know, plaster work or that sort of thing, unfortunately is dwindling more and more. However, the people that worked on the masons that worked on the brick, the people that refinished this floor had so much attention to care and craftsmanship that they were annoying. I mean, in the best possible way. We were like, all right, we've done 49 samples. Which one, you know? But it really proved out to be amazing because the floors, as you can see, are for the most part original. And what that means is they look like roller coasters. They're just all over the place. And so you have to make a beautiful design decision of like how far down, how much are we okay with the roller coaster? And it was a bit subjective. So going back to this new infill here, these were the old fire doors. So this was a wide open door, and it had a sliding barn style door on it. And the really cool thing is, it had this, what we call a fusible link, so a weight at the end of a rope. And the purpose of that was so if there was a fire in the tobacco warehouse, which is certainly not out of the question, the rope would have burned, the weight would have dropped, and the door would have shut. It's like such a beautiful and elegant mechanical solution. Now everything's electronic, right? The little magnet thing. But that's been one of my favorite parts of this project. So, so that's what those walls were doing. You can also see that we did some acoustic baffling, and of course all new HVAC and lighting. But the acoustic baffling, in addition to the acoustic glass, is the reason that I'm able to kind of talk in normal voice.
What's acoustic baffling?
Great question. So there are these, it's a baffling. No. My kids don't laugh. I need you guys to come home with me. So these gray things right here are made of felt. And the idea is that acoustics is just like light. It's coming out of my mouth and bouncing all over all the hard surfaces. We need something, usually in the ceiling, to be able to absorb all that vibration so it's not echoey in here and hard to hear. So you can hear me as clearly as you can, in large part because of those felt baffles that are up there. All right, so now we're going to go out and next door. I'm excited to show you sort of our main lecture hall that's right next to this room.
We'll come back and get this TV and take it to my house. You didn't record that, did you?
Thank you. Excuse me.
I've seen a bunch of this one's not. I'm learning though. I think this one actually might be the one that's working. Okay, so obviously this is our main lecture hall. This is where the part of the presentation where I'm going to give you my 3-hour dissertation on good performance. That would be boring for me even. So this room exemplifies what I was talking about out there, which is the old and the new. Like, how do you teach students in 2024 and honor the legacy of the building and the built environment? So proud of the balance that was struck in this room, and I'll point out a couple of ways. The first is, you'll notice again that same sort of cutout detail that we talked about. So we wanted a double height space with a balcony so students or folks like you could sit up here and watch the presentation. The old thing that we accepted as a condition is what I'm standing on now. This is not a stage. This is, and it's actually kind of a weird height for a stage too, by the way. This is the height of a hogshead barrel that Doug was talking about earlier, so that it was full of tobacco. They were able to roll the hogshead barrel and make it flush with this floor here. And so that's this whole half-story condition is because of that. We also, of course, have state-of-the-art electronics in this room. So we're able to, with the push of a button, kind of change the mode of how the room works. And then we have this fully interactive system here that allows us to not only project what we're working on, but then we can also mark up on it as well. So I like chalkboards. Gone is the day of chalkboards where we're doing this. And then of course we have the ability to simulcast from this room and raise and lower the shades as well. All right. The final thing I'll note in this room is that right over here, really beautiful detail, that stair getting up to this now stage is the exact same fabrication detail as you will see out there, same company, same angles and everything, including the same handrail. So that's a nice continuity between here and there. The other thing you'll notice is, I'm not sure that this is successful yet. However, the big thing that we talked about when we were building this building, we said, how do we give this building another 100 years of life at least left in it? And really the challenge was to say maximum flexibility. We want to be able to arrange and configure this building in as many ways as possible. And that's worked really well. The reason I'm hesitating a little bit is in this room, all of the chairs are on wheels, and students rearranged this room, faculty rearranged this room. So that's really lovely, but it also sort of makes it disjointed and a little bit chaotic. So stay tuned. I figure we'll have a year or two of this. We're going to try to figure out if that really works or not. But I want you to notice that about the rest of the building. All the student desks, all the chairs, everything has wheels on it, and we rearrange it constantly. So the next thing we're going to do, first off, I know we might have some different ambulatory capabilities. The elevator is here, it can fit probably about 10 people, but it is a bit slow. So we're going to go up to the second floor, but before we do that, we're going to walk down, up these stairs and down this main hallway out here, okay? So if you have some ambulatory challenges, you're more than welcome to go on up to the second floor in the elevator. Otherwise, I will see you guys out here in this hallway. Yes, sir?
Did you have to make any expansions? Is there any new additions to this building?
None. Yeah, so we had a total footprint in 5 buildings of about 75,000 square feet. Now, I mentioned earlier, we didn't do the basement, but even without the basement, we're at 100,000 square feet now. Now, I'll tell you, the new building, word's gotten out, our enrollment shot up and we're already maxed out. So, we might be moving into that basement a little sooner rather than later. But yeah, no additions yet. But that's certainly, as the university, you may not know this, the university now owns all of the property on this side of Broadway. And so, I don't know about it being a physical extension of the building, but certainly the university is looking to grow in this area anyway. So. All right, if you guys want to go out and up these stairs, I will meet you out in the hallway.
Bringing airplanes.
Yeah. This is what I use on tours when people do that. What's that? Yes, thank you. It actually needed you. I was looking at it being a little tilted today. Yeah, come on in. Feel free to fill in all the areas. There's nothing off limits in this room. Just come on in. So, you'll remember back in school, I'm sure your classrooms didn't look like anything like the stuff that we're surrounded with now. It's actually one of the things we're really, really proud of with this building. One of the reasons for change, I mentioned 75,000 to 100,000 square feet. That was a little reason. We had a big reason. The big reason was, Every classroom we had was in an actual classroom that set 15 to 20 students across 5 buildings. They never knew each other, they never saw each other, and design education, probably more than most any other discipline, requires hanging out, talking to each other, getting ideas, being critical of each other. You know, all of the things that you think about when you think about being an architect, interior designer, historic preservationist, landscape architect, or product designer. You have to really work collaboratively together. So that was the beauty of what you're seeing now. This is our classroom. The wide open space behind you. Yeah.
If I could just add one more thing on what you were saying, talking about how space has really affected how we teach, who we interact with, how we interact. So I teach historic preservation. We have workshops on weekends every now and then. We had one, the first semester we were in here. It was a Denver chronology workshop, all about tree ring dating. So learning how to figure out how old a piece of wood it is by drilling a hole in it, counting tree rings, and you can figure out how old it is. I had, I think, more students from outside of A&D than I had in HP because now I've got students from architecture, I've got students from landscape architecture, I've got students from all the programs who see the flyers and we can look in the windows and see what we're doing. So, you know, instead of us being kind of our own little programs that are tucked away in the corner somewhere, we're right in the middle of everything now. The same thing goes for our grass stone masonry workshop. Same thing. I had students from architecture, landscape architecture, HP students from anthropology. There's one who was taking class in HP, so he was kind of an add-on. But, you know, it's great. I mean, we used to be so kind of pigeonholed, and now we're right in the middle of everything. So everybody gets to see what we're doing, and we get to have conversations, and we get to invite each other to our workshops. And it's a real improvement over. HP was in Bowman Hall. So we were sort of on the quad up there where the roads and yeah, Sheridan.
Yeah.
I already forgot.
That's old news.
My memory.
This is the new news. Yeah, and so really to bring Doug's point home, remember I was saying earlier, I'm not sure exactly how the chairs are working out. This is another sort of, one of those things that's on paper. We think that cross-pollination is going to give us the best students we've ever had. And if you think about it, the way that they'll work out in the real world, nobody works in isolation. Maybe they quite never did, but especially today. This building took teams of engineers, architects, everybody, right? All working together. And so our hope is that we're preparing them for that work future. So the thing that, when you see me in 3 years, I want you to ask me about is also, did that cross-pollination work? We've only been in for like 7 or 8 months now. I'm still not totally sure, but I think it is. Exactly to Doug's point, I'm seeing colleagues that I haven't seen in years, almost every day. So I think that it's going, I really am quite optimistic. So in addition to the big classroom, we call that our studio, and you'll see some more upstairs. This huge facility behind me, and sort of what we're standing into, is like the best thing that we give our students, and that is open access and largely free access to tons of tools and ways of making. Now, why is that important? The reason that's important is, if there's one thing across all design disciplines, it is, how do I get ideas out of my head and out into the real world so I can communicate them? And that's a powerful thing if you think about it, because when you say car and I say car, you know, we're probably thinking about two dramatically different things. So we got to make the car so we can talk about it. And that's no different than buildings or ideas or anything. So behind me, we're not going to be able to go in just for safety reasons in the number of us. However, behind me, there are robotic arms, computer routers, traditional woodworking equipment, there's laser cutters, there's 3D knitting machines. So there's a knitting machine back there that could knit this whole sweater. It didn't, but it could. Like all kinds of tools to make. We also have, and you may be able to see on this shelf over here, 3D prints. So I don't know if any of you have been exposed to 3D printing. It's a pretty amazing technology. It's not magic, but it's a pretty good way to get ideas out of the computer and into the real world so you can see it. We also have fully interactive classrooms. So our students are surrounded with tools of making. And so that's why this area is important. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to lead you guys up. We're going to actually go up those big stairs. Again, feel free to take the elevator. We'll make sure to wait for everybody if you're needing to wait. And we're going to congregate up around the top floor. That's it. Yes, ma'am.
Just a real quick question.
Yeah.
The studio space, is everybody intermingled or is it first year, second year, third year?
Yeah. So that was a great question. This is the default for folks was all the architects should be in architecture, all the interior designers, this should be, and immediately we were like, we're going to try this. Let's mix them up. And we're mixing everybody up. And if you're a freshman, you could be next to a grad studio.
Okay.
And man, do I really believe in that. And so far, actually, it's worked pretty well. There's been little tensions here and there about different ways of working and making. We're working through that. However, I really believe in them, just like put them all in a box and shake them up. Otherwise, there's some kind of bias we're inserting into it, you know, whether we need to or not. So, all right, let's head up the stairs.
You don't see that much unless it's a big event or something. But you know, every Saturday night, you know, they just 300 people or so. And then there you go. Hell, it'd be good to get 30 here.
You sit wherever you want. Once you make yourself at home, that's the most important. So this is a nice spot. First off, isn't it kind of remarkable how different the building seems when you get up on this level? Obviously, I've spent tens of thousands of hours probably now in this building, and it's still striking to me how different the experience of the building is on the first floor and the second. However, you can see the commonality being where that studio space we walked down on the first floor. You can see it continuing up here as well on this side and this side. The main differences are that the columns are smaller and less dense, and that makes sense if you think about it because they hold up less weight. All these columns are doing all they're doing is holding up the weight of the roof. The ones on the first floor are holding up this floor and the roof. And then the ones in the basement are huge because they're holding up the whole building. The second thing is this is going to give us a much better view of those bowstring trusses that I talked about. So up here it's a little hard to sort of discern old and new. This kind of star looking system here is new. That was added for the lights that are dangling down there, that bit of a constellation. And then the truss here is existing. And that was original for the building. So you could see the difference earlier, wherever he went, asked me the question right here, asking me the question about what we did for the ceiling, the roof differently. You can see the difference. This column, that's the white, that's got the wood over top of it, and then the custom cast iron detail there. That's exactly what that was there. Except for there was a floor obviously here. So now you can really see the difference between the old and the new. And just a small detail, but an important one, you can also see how the color. You see that the new, I think that's called iron ore, was the name of that color from Bayer, contrasts with the white of the original. So that's a nice way to teach students where one ends and one begins. The second thing that we can see up here really nicely now is where I was telling you that water was coming in so badly, was this clerestory detail here. So clerestory, for those of you that don't know, simply means a sort of half wall, or you might even call it a knee wall, usually between two roofs that has the window. We call it clerestory. And its purpose is probably obvious to you, but it is to let light in. So that is the south, relatively south, it's the southwest. And in Kentucky, the sun is always in the south throughout the year. So even as it's going overhead, in the winter it's low on the horizon in the south, so it warms up because the nice warm sun's coming through here. And in the summer, it's much higher, so it doesn't warm it up as much coming through there. Those are traditional architectural details that we lost because we had HVAC, and like, who cares? Well, suddenly people are caring again. They understand energy's not free, right? And your electric bill is not free. So those are the kinds of things. The other cool detail that's related to that is, obviously this building wasn't built with HVAC, it hadn't even been invented yet when this building was built. And so the cross ventilation in here, although not maybe in this exact spot because of the glass, but you can open up these windows. It's not going to be 72, but you know, it might take it to 80, 85. So before we put the HVAC system in here, we kept these windows open as much as possible during the construction and during the summer. I promise you it got much colder than it got warmer. It was actually much more pleasant in the summer. I think the final thing, I will point out two more things. One is there is a really large picture that's sort of taped up there. That's a pretty close to scale actual picture of that spot. And that shows you that height difference that I was telling you about when I was standing on the stage. Shows you that barrel, which is the hogshead there, and you can see the workers that were standing, like I was standing on that stage, and pulling out and being handed the tobacco leaves. Now, I don't know much about the processing of tobacco, so I'm not sure exactly what this is, but there's a machine that they're folding it through. And there's a reverse picture of the other side of that machine where folks are taking it after it's gone through that machine. Again, I don't know exactly what that is, but it's really cool to see how that worked and why that was there. Okay, the last couple of places I want to take you into is we're going to go into 209. So if everybody wants to start going in there, I'm going to open the curtain into 211 so I can show you that whole thing. So if folks want to go ahead and start going in 209, I'll meet you in there.
This is a hut.
That's one, and then one
Watching it. Nice.
Looks like there's a completely different level.
Yeah, feel free to grab any seat anywhere. I'm not going to give you an exam. Hope you're not having PTSD from school. So this is the final room that I'd love to show you tonight. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm happy to stick around and answer any questions corporately that we want, or even individually. I'll stick around for as long as you guys want. But I really love this room. I like ending on this room because I love it so much, and I love it for a few reasons. It's hard to see one reason, it's dark outside, but this has absolute beautiful views of downtown Lexington. And again, you know, really, I don't think people totally believed me when I told them that this building could be a part of downtown Lexington. And so it's a little bit of a point of pride for me personally to see downtown outside of the window here and feel really justified in that assessment. The second thing is you can really see, actually, when you raise the lines here, you can see how the clerestory window continues on. So we have the ability to, you know, completely control the light, the acoustics, and everything in this particular classroom especially. And so it makes it a really lovely place to teach. Another thing that I love about this room is it is the best opportunity, and depending on where you're sitting, actually probably most of you will be able to see the many different stories the floor is telling you. So it is original, not original, maybe original, who knows? It's like really wide planks, really tiny planks. And do you remember that guy I was telling you about that was the guy that finished the floor, right? This room, he spent a significant amount of time on because it really is just a patchwork, almost like a quilt. And that was one of those things that before we moved in, we were a little worried about. Like, wow, that floor is going to be all over the place in terms of pattern, in terms of color. And would you know, it's everybody's favorite feature of the building. And not only that, it's almost so noisy in terms of the differences that it all blends together, if that makes sense. It's like it really becomes part of the texture in the background. And so that's just like a really nice lesson for me to have personally learned. The other cool thing about this room is that back glass wall there opens up completely. So from the big steel beam in the middle down, that's a folding pocket door. I'm not going to do it because it takes a really long time to get it open. However, you can get the idea that, remember that room we were in where I was standing on stage? That's what's down there. And so we can open up this whole area, that whole area, and you can have a lecture really simultaneously in all of these places. We can even broadcast what's down there up here and vice versa. Now, I don't know if we'll ever actually do that, but we sure do have the ability to do it. And I'll tell you what we do use it for is events. So you can imagine, like, we've had a nice cocktail party up here, and it's just really nice to open that up, play some music in here. And, yeah, it's a really nice room. Another thing to point out are the baffles again. This is our new favorite thing. You can see the acoustic baffles, and again, you really notice the sound quality difference in here versus as soon as somebody opens that door. Actually, Emily, open that door if you don't mind. I want you to, maybe not as loud as normal, but usually when the building is full of people, it is such a stark difference when you're opening or closing that. Thank you, Emily, for being my Vanna White. A couple of final notes, just from the overall technology of the building that you might find interesting. This is, depending on who you ask, the largest geothermal project the university has ever gone through. Geothermal and the university Doesn't make a lot of sense from, let's say, a dollars and cents standpoint because there's a central plant. And most of these buildings are heated through steam and through essentially produced electricity. However, it was important to us for the ecological reasons that it's not necessarily always just about dollars and cents and the payback period, but also just about total energy consumption of the building. And so out in that parking lot that you park in today, there are 87 500 feet deep wells underneath there. And so actually there was a question earlier, and I sort of fibbed, I didn't mean to, there's nothing in the basement. All of the geothermal equipment is in the basement. It's a huge, almost looks like a NASA control room down here with all the software in it and everything. But it's really a pretty sophisticated system to put geothermal and also give users the ability, and I'm pointing at the wall because that's where the thermostat is, to be able to control the temperature in each room. That takes a lot of software and a lot of engineering. And so we're really proud of that. The other thing we're really proud of is you can tell actually the light dimmed because the timer in there, the lights are all automatic throughout the whole building. So they're LEDs, so they're not drinking a lot of electricity anyway, but we want them off whenever we can. And then there are little sensors in each room which it actually measures the carbon dioxide that you're breathing out so that it gets a good sense of the occupancy of the building. And that occupancy determines if the HVAC system is running, and it also helps determine the lighting and that sort of thing. So, building's pretty smart. You might look at it and go, that's a lot of old stuff, but there's some pretty cool new stuff hiding just beneath the surface.
Was it LEED built?
Now, you know, the university, let me just take a couple steps back. So for folks that don't know, LEED is Leadership in Energy Efficient Design. And maybe even 15 years ago, it was sort of the standard for understanding and being able to say this building meets certain energy standards. And exactly to her excellent question, there's bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Platinum being the most. It's really gone out of favor with designers. Yeah, so you just see it less. However, we didn't do the scorecard. I can't promise you, but what I can tell you is you get a ton of points for taking a building that already exists, because carbon's already in here. You know, why not reuse the carbon? You get a ton of points for being walkable, so we've got that. Being near bus service, which obviously on the university's campus is a lot, like even bike racks and that sort of thing. So even before all of the energy efficiency stuff we put into the building, we would have gotten a pretty good certification. But that being said, folks don't usually pay for it much anymore. It's really gone out of favor. Yes?
Can I just add to recommend that really LEED helped change the standards of design, and so I think it's fallen out of favor, not because environmental design has fallen out of favor, but because it's more or less a standard, and there's been a lot of design choices that have fallen into that standard.
That's an excellent point. Actually, yeah, I in no way want to imply it's because people care less about energy, but actually it's nothing else.
It's not needed.
It's the opposite. It's assumed.
It's
It's baked into every conversation we have. So that's an excellent point. Yeah.
Are there overrides for all these smart features for the lighting and the HVAC? So you're not entirely relying on the building?
Yeah, and that's always a question, especially student safety. If it's 3 a.m. Our students, by the way, have keys to this building. It's a key card, but the other weird thing about design in school is that you get to be in the building 24/7 if you wanted to be. So we wouldn't want that stuff to fail at 3 in the morning when 30 students are in here. So I will assure you, I don't have anything to compare it to, but the university has a standard. It's this thing. And it is full of those kinds of things. If power goes out in the elevator, what happens? Things do happen. I've been here long enough now to have experienced a few of those incidences, and all of our systems work pretty well. Yeah.
So tomorrow, what's going to happen in this room? What's going to be taught? How's it going to be taught?
Yeah. So a couple of points there. One is that there is the only difference in the classrooms is really about size. More or less, the technology is the same across the classrooms. More or less, the furniture is the same, everything. It's about size. So your question about what is taught, It is depends on the size of the room. Where's your professional practice? Is it?
Here.
It's in here. Okay. So, for example, Professor Amy Smith teaches her professional practice in interior design in this room. It might be tomorrow. Is it tomorrow?
No, it's today.
Today. There we
If I'm
go.
here, I'm teaching.
Breaking news. Yeah.
And intro to historic preservation will be in here tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
There you go. So specifically, that's what it is. But next semester it'll be completely different things. And this room seats about 50 to 75, and that's what we shoot for.
It also doubles as like an event
Yeah.
space, so a lot of times there will be presentations, people from other schools, nearby colleges that will, not lease, rent, whatever. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
they will have this room and they'll have presenters and lunch and learns.
That's right.
Yeah.
We want you in this building. That being said, I'm getting really good at saying no.
Yeah.
But you all are in here because we care deeply about historic preservation. We care deeply about the Bluegrass Trust. It's integral to what we do. So, like the architecture associations, interior design associations will have them in. We are learning that this building has been in high demand. So, but remember what I said about wheels on everything? By the way, this room is that, and so exactly to her point, all of these fold up. We roll them all out, and this is just a big empty room we can do whatever we want into. So, good questions. Yeah.
How has the renovation here affected the immediate space around the building?
Yeah. Renovations and building a building is the most complicated, logistically expensive thing you can do. It is impossible to do it without affecting the world around the immediate context of the building. We had a couple of things going for us. One is we're on the edge of campus. As you can see, you could actually park. I mean, that's like a small miracle, right? Where we were before was always landlocked. Like you couldn't park within 15 minutes of where we were in some places. So that helped because trucks could get in and out and we wouldn't have to worry about students and that sort of thing. However, our friends immediately next door that are Metal Arts, they were pretty inconvenienced and were just lovely about it. There were times when we had to shut out access to that when we were bringing in big pipes and that sort of thing. But that's a big part. The university's got that down to a science. The University of Kentucky has spent $5 billion on construction over the past 10 years. And in the next 5 years, we're going to spend another $5 billion. Double, the same amount of construction in half the time. And so we've gotten pretty good, not great, but good at minimizing disruption around us. Yeah.
I'm going to piggyback a question off that. So with the acquisition of the additional buildings, is the intent to become a design district?
Boy, I'd love it to be a design district. I don't know if it'll quite be a design district, but it will definitely, design is, we're planting a pretty strong flag in trying to shape those conversations about what this becomes. I will admit the opinions expressed here are just mine, not the universities, not the colleges, mine. I would love for this to be an arts and innovation district that is so connected to the community that there are community buildings in this part. Maybe there's even food resources for local folks. The university, again, has been a bit of a walled garden historically. It's sort of been like, well, yeah, Lexington, but we're UK. And I think that this is the best opportunity we've had to be much more integrated into the city of Lexington. So that's what we're advocating for. As designers, that's sort of our natural language. It's weird that other people don't think that way to us. But these are big, expensive decisions, and they're very bureaucratic, so we'll see. What we do know is that the word innovation is definitely attached to this area of campus, and that word is ambiguous enough to where I think that hopefully we can shape it to mean deeply integrated into nonprofits, the city of Lexington, in addition to doing great and amazing things for the university. Yeah?
What's with the name Gray? I'm just not talking about the color.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've had a conversation. Actually, Googling that at first was always funny. It's like, great design building. Here's a building. That's great. This used to be the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Warehouse. Hasn't been owned by R.J. Reynolds since 1963, but the name stuck. On modern university campuses, buildings are named by the people, or I guess you could say for, the people that give the most amount of money to name the building. In this particular case, Gray Construction and the Gray family I'm not saying this because they gave us a lot of money. I am saying this because it's genuinely true. Have been amazing intellectual and financial partners for us. So they gave a gift of $5.25 million. And a big reason why we're sitting here today, we can say all we want about the ethical reasons or the whatever reasons to keep a historic building. The fact that former mayor, now Secretary Jim Gray, cares deeply about historic preservation made this possible. So that's the story of the name.
Do you have a BGT disc on the building?
No, actually.
We need to get you one.
And apply for it.
How weird is the university about that? Is it on other ones?
No idea.
It's on other ones, yeah.
Okay. Might be where.
It's on your neighbors.
Okay.
College of Education.
Yeah. The university is a big place. I never know exactly how these things go. However, would love to support that in any way that I can. I believe I've been going on tours and that sort of doing this since I was a little kid with BGT, so it means a lot to me. So if it's possible, let's do it. Again, I don't speak for the university. All right, well, thank you all for coming. Lovely to meet all of you.
Just really quickly, for the benefit of the people who will watch this later on YouTube, can you speak a little bit to some of the kind of fun things that took place here when the building was dormant? So between tobacco and now, I think Beaux-Arts maybe?
Yeah, that's right. So it's a big old empty space, and in addition to storage, we had several events here. Beaux-Arts Ball did something here, but we also had even philanthropy events. So like Women in Philanthropy, several parties. We actually made it pretty beautiful. Although the joke was that we said it was like camping because there was no plumbing, there was not much electricity, and that sort of thing. Also, folks found their way into the building. There's a lot of it, entrances, and so it was a full-time job, just like even keeping onlookers out.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, nice to see you.